Virgo. If you are a Virgo and were born on this date, you are special for that reason. If I asked you your zodiac sign, you'd answer immediately. But if I asked you the exact day, not the month, the specific number, most people stammer, as if it were just a detail on a form. And that's exactly where the part nobody told you about Virgo lies. You've heard the same description repeated 1,000 times. Organized, critical, perfectionist, but it never quite clicked, did it? Because within the 30 days that Virgo occupies on the calendar, there are at least 3 completely different ways of feeling, of demanding more of yourself, of protecting yourself, and no generic video can break that down for you. Some people are born needing to name every feeling before it turns into chaos. Some are born measuring their own worth by their usefulness, afraid of being dispensable. And some hide behind so much logic, a sensitivity they treat with suspicion. If you were born on a specific day in the Virgo sign, that day has already decided which of the 3 signs is yours. And that changes everything you thought you knew about yourself. There's a question that almost no one asks on a birthday. Everyone asks about your zodiac sign. Almost no one asks about the day. And it's curious because it was the day, not the entire month, the exact day, that decided what kind of mind you would carry for the rest of your life. If you're a Virgo, you've probably heard the same description repeated in videos, posts and bar conversations. Organized, critical, perfectionist, controlling. And maybe you've watched it because some of it resonates. But there's a part that never quite clicked, is there? A feeling that this description was made for a generic Virgo, an average Virgo, and you've never exactly been average in anything. This happens because nobody told you the most obvious thing. Within 30 days of Virgo, there are at least 3 completely different ways of processing the world. And the difference isn't in the entire month, it's in the day. Think of a fingerprint. Everyone is born with the same 10 fingers, the same basic structure of grooves and ridges, but no pattern repeats itself. Never. Nowhere on the planet, at any time in history, have there been 2 identical fingerprints. And yet, when someone talks about fingerprints, they talk as if it were just one thing, a single category. Nobody goes into detail. Nobody asks what their specific pattern is. The same thing happens with Virgo. People talk about the sign as if it were a solid block, a mass-produced personality, the same for the 30 days it occupies on the calendar. But those born at the beginning of the month carry a mental energy that almost no one recognizes as Virgo at first glance. An almost obsessive need to name everything, to put words to every feeling before it turns into chaos, before it becomes a threat. This person doesn't rest until the right phrase appears. Those born in the middle of the month carry something else, something quieter, more functional, an urgency to be useful, to prove their worth through what they do, never through what they feel. This person measures their day by the list of tasks completed, and when the list ends before nightfall, something inside them quietly asks if they are still useful for anything. It's not vanity, it's fear. The age-old fear that without a clear purpose, they simply have no place in the world anymore. Notice how this is already different from the first group. One needs the right word, the other needs a clear function. Neither will fully recognize themselves in the same generic horoscope sentence because they are not the same cog in the machine, even if born under the same symbol, even if they carry the same sign name stamped on their birth certificate. And those born at the end of the month hide behind so much logic, so much explanation, so much precision, a sensitivity that they themselves treat with suspicion, as if feeling were a miscalculation, a variable that shouldn't be in the equation, but that insists on appearing every time they think they've solved everything. 3 energies, 1 sign. The same month carrying within it 3 ways of loving, of demanding from oneself, of protecting oneself. And if you've ever felt too different, even strange, to fit entirely within the generic description they've stuck on you, organized, critical, perfectionist, period, as if that summed everything up, Perhaps the problem was never you. Perhaps the problem was, all this time, only being asked about the month, when the real answer, the answer that would explain so much that you've never been able to explain about yourself, has always been hidden, quiet, patient, waiting for the exact moment to appear, right in the day, not the month, the exact day, that specific number you barely glance at when someone asks your sign. It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose doesn't treat Virgo as a single block. It starts exactly where most content about the sign leaves off, recognizing that there is a specific version of you that no generic horoscope description will ever properly name. It's a shift in mindset, not a ready-made formula. It teaches you to stop measuring your clarity by the yardstick of an average Virgo that doesn't exist and start recognizing the pattern that only your own day carries. Now, while you're still processing the idea that you may have lived years compared to a distorted version of yourself, now is the time to act. Not in a week when the discomfort has cooled and become just another forgotten reflection among so many others you've kept and never used. This kind of recognition has a short window. It appears clear now, but if you do nothing with it, tomorrow it will seem like just another video you watched and moved on from. The time has come to stop procrastinating. The link is pinned in the first comment, but spots are filling up fast. Click and start building the clarity and genius you deserve now. And tell me in the comments, do you already know which of the 3/3 of the month your birth falls in? And have you only now felt that it finally makes sense? Let's take it slow, because this story has layers, and each one explains a part of you that may never have had a name. If you were born between the end of August and the first day of September, there's a mental energy within you that functions almost like a sundial. A sundial only tells the time when there's direct light, without shadow, without middle ground, without ambiguity. And that's exactly how this part of Virgo processes life. It needs total clarity. It needs to name each feeling before it becomes doubt. It needs to close each sentence with a period that leaves no room for interpretation. Ruled by a Mercury that talks to itself, without stopping, this Virgo constructs internal sentences all day long, analyzing, correcting, rehearsing what it will say, even before anyone asks. But what happens when this mind, which only functions under direct light, encounters a situation without a clear answer? When someone hurts you in a way that defies analysis, when a feeling arrives without any underlying logic. In those moments, this energy freezes, because the shadow for this part of Virgo is no mystery. It's a system failure. Think about how this plays out in practice. An ambiguous comment from a loved one can turn into hours of mental reconstruction, going over each word, testing every possible interpretation until finding the reading that makes logical sense. Not because this person is insecure, because they literally don't rest until the phrase has a closed, definitive meaning without room for residual doubt. And the exhaustion this generates is rarely recognized outwardly, because on the outside, everything seems calm, controlled, articulate. Only those who live inside this mind know how much energy is spent trying to illuminate every corner before accepting to move forward. If your birth falls between the first days and the middle of September, the energy governing your mind is different, quieter, more functional, more earthy. Think of it as a harvest that needs to happen on the right day. Not a day before when the fruit is still green and the effort is wasted, nor a day after when the fruit is overripe and rots in season. There is an exact window, and this energy is obsessed with not missing that window. This is the virgin who measures her own worth by her usefulness, who feels deep down that she only deserves rest after having produced enough to justify her place in the world. She doesn't ask for help, because asking for help sounds like admitting that the harvest might fail. She sacrifices herself silently, function after function, task after task, trying to prove, to whom she doesn't even know exactly, that she is useful enough to continue being accepted. But what does she sacrifice in this process to prove that she is useful? The answer begins to emerge when that same energy, exhausted from so much production, encounters a mirror she didn't expect. This reflection usually appears disguised as physical exhaustion, a body that can no longer keep up the pace, a night's sleep that doesn't come because the mind is still calculating tomorrow's to-do list. And it's only at this point of exhaustion, when producing ceases to be an option, that this Virgo finally faces the question they've avoided their entire life. Who am I when I'm not being useful to anyone? The answer takes a while to arrive because this person has never had practice existing without a purpose. But the simple fact that the question appears is, in itself, a crack in the old armor. If you were born between mid and late September, the energy that governs you works differently from the other two. It's emotional, but it disguises itself as logic all the time. Think of a photograph developed in a darkroom. The image already exists on the paper from the moment the light touches the film. It just needs the right time within the right liquid to become visible. That's how this Virgo feels. The emotion is already there, whole, formed, but she insists on treating it as a hypothesis, on reviewing each feeling before accepting that it is real. This is the Virgo that most denies its own sensitivity, precisely because it feels it more intensely than the other two. It transforms every emotion into data, every intuition into a suspicion to be investigated, as if feeling without proof were too great a risk. And the cruelest thing is that this is often the most intuitive part of the entire sign, only to be trained from an early age to doubt itself before anyone else doubts it first. Notice how this appears in small things. This Virgo senses a sadness coming on and immediately asks, "But why exactly am I feeling this?" As if the emotion needed documented justification before being allowed to exist. She feels a sudden joy and distrusts it, searching for the rational reason behind it, as if joy without a clear cause were too suspicious to be real. Living like this is like developing a photograph, always stopping the process a second before the image becomes clear, afraid of what will appear. What if the most emotional part of Virgo is precisely the one they insist on proving, with numbers, doesn't exist? What remains when someone spends their entire life developing their own photograph in a darkroom, never letting the image truly appear? This image that never quite finishes revealing itself, this intuition treated with suspicion, is precisely where the divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose begins to make different sense. It doesn't ask you to become more analytical. It asks the opposite, that you learn to trust what you've already felt before demanding numerical proof of it. For those born in this final third of the month, this book works almost like finally revealing the entire photograph without interrupting the process midway. The time has come to stop procrastinating. The link is pinned in the first comment, but spots are filling up fast. Click and start building the clarity and genius you deserve now. Now consider something that may never have occurred to you. It's not just the third of the month that defines you, it's the exact day. Think of a book edition with a print run number on the last page. The text is exactly the same in every copy of the same edition, but that specific copy with that specific number will never exist again. It's unique, even though it's part of an entire print run. Your birth date functions within the very third of Virgo that you carry. Two people can be born in the same week, under the same background energy, and still have completely different nuances, because the rest of the sky on that specific day, the other stars, the other angles, adjusted the instrument in a way that is never repeated. You are not just Virgo of the first third, or Virgo of the second third. You are that particular example, with that specific number drawn on that day. Imagine two people born a week apart, both in the same third of the month. On the surface, they seem similar, both organized, both self-critical, both with that silent urgency to do everything right. But dig a little deeper, and the differences appear. One tolerates visual clutter better than the other. One needs silence to think, while the other thinks better in motion. One forgives their own mistakes faster than the other. None of these nuances are in the generic description of Virgo. They are all etched into the exact day. If each day within the month carries such a unique nuance, why does almost no one stop to celebrate their own day? Only the entire generic month, shared with millions of other people who were born under completely different energies than their own. And here lies the poison that most Virgos carry without realizing it. The constant comparison with a generic version of their own sign. Imagine a wine from a specific vintage, harvested in an exact year, with sun and rain conditions that will never be repeated in that way, being judged by the average price of the entire region, as if all the bottles from that valley, from all years, were worth exactly the same. This is what happens every time you measure yourself by the standard description of Virgo that circulates out there. You compare your specific vintage, your exact year, your exact day, with an average that has never truly represented anyone, much less you. And every time you don't perfectly fit that average, some part of you concludes wrongly that there's something broken inside you. There isn't. There's a different vintage being judged by the wrong yardstick. This also explains why so many Virgos feel too wrong, even when doing everything they consider right. They aren't comparing their own conduct to a personal standard. They're comparing it to a statistical average of millions of people born in an entire month, mixing the 3/3, mixing completely different energies, and still expecting to exactly match that impossible mix. No harvest perfectly matches the average of all other harvests, and that was never their fault. What remains of you when you finally stop measuring yourself by that generic yardstick and start asking what your harvest, your year, your day truly is? Stop measuring yourself by the wrong yardstick. That's perhaps the most direct invitation of the divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose. The book doesn't promise to erase your self-criticism. It promises to direct it to where it truly serves. Genuine discernment, not comparison disguised as demandingness. For a mind that has spent years judging its own output by the regional average, this changes the whole game. Available stock is dwindling, and delaying this recognition is choosing to continue being judged by a standard that was never yours. The time has come to stop procrastinating. The link is pinned in the first comment, but spots are running out. Click and start building the clarity and genius you deserve now. There comes a point, for those who truly understand this, when the date of birth ceases to be a bureaucratic detail and becomes permission. Think of a coin minted with the date and location engraved on its surface. The face value doesn't change. It remains the same coin, the same metal. But the rarity of each specific minting, that's what makes it different. Collectors pay fortunes for coins from exact years, from exact mintages, because they know that that small detail engraved there tells a story that no other coin tells. Your birth date is that recording, and when you stop treating it as a calendar coincidence and start treating it as a signature, something changes inside. You stop asking permission to be exactly the way you are, because you understand that this version of you, with that specific date recorded on it, was born with its own legitimacy. This doesn't mean stopping growing, stopping improving, stopping refining what can still be refined. Virgo will never stop doing that, and doesn't need to. It means doing that refinement from a place of legitimacy, not lack. Working on a foundation that is already valid, instead of trying to build a foundation that proves you deserve to exist the way you do. What if the specialty you've been searching for your whole life, through achievements, approvals, and valuable external tests, has always been literally written on your birth certificate? In the end, perhaps the beauty of Virgo never lay in the perfection that is so often demanded, nor in the organization that is so highly required, but in that rare ability to carry within a single month 3 entire ways of experiencing the world. And yet, within those 3, to keep a version that is exclusively their own, etched into a day that will never be repeated. Imagine a star map. Each point of light there has its own coordinates, an exact position that no other star occupies, even if they belong to the same constellation, even if they shine under the same name that astronomers gave to the entire constellation. No one looks at a constellation and says that all the stars are the same. Each one has its own brightness, its own distance, its own time of light, until it reaches our eyes. You are one of those stars, part of a constellation called Virgo, yes, but with coordinates that only your exact day knows how to name. And perhaps the piece you've been searching for so long out there has been all this time just waiting for you to look at those coordinates with the same care you've always dedicated to everything except yourself.